how do you go from broke Cali musician to recording gospel greats like Bishop Hezekiah Walker? Well, it's not easy, but there's an art to making it work. Welcome to the Art of Possibility. Today, we've got Andrew Brown, owner of Light and Sound Studios. And look, this man raised his family of 6 while building his studio in a garage with a box of scraps. So turn it up and tune in.
My name is Andrew Brown.
All right.
I am the owner of Light and Sound Studio, and it's a recording studio and it's a video production studio based in Feasterville, which is just outside of Northeast Philly. And we have been open since 2018. And we've worked with, punk bands, gospel artists, singer-songwriters, all different, genres.
Yeah, we'll touch upon this at the end, but
Yeah.
as we go along, if anybody does want to check out your business as a whole, would it be best to look you up on social media, your website, give you a call, send you a letter?
I prefer
Carrier
letters.
pigeon letters?
Well,
Okay.
carrier pigeon is my first preference.
Yeah, of course. Of course. What's
Lightandsoundstudio.com is the website. Instagram is at Light and Sound Studio, or for our live event, which is held at Sweeney's, is at Light and Sound
Sweeney
Studio.
Station Saloon,
yeah.
Sweeney's Station,
located in Feasterville.
also known as Philly Special.
Oh, yeah, they renamed it, right? It's
Yeah.
Philly Special
I don't know
now?
if it's official
Okay.
yet, but it's
It's on
Okay.
its way.
yeah, they're trying to change the name.
Yeah.
Do you know why?
He's just a new owner and he wants to rebrand. I don't know.
One
I
of
think
those, huh?
Sweeney's has like a connotation to it. Not a connotation, but it's
Like Sweeney Todd?
no. It's just kind of. I think it has a reputation in the area, and he wants to, I guess, kind of get
Just
away
to
from
start
that reputation.
recrafting it a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, so let's start at the beginning. So I was talking to you a little bit earlier and was hearing some pretty cool stories, but why don't you tell us where you got started with music and, start putting some pieces together so we can begin to understand how you got to where you are.
Sure. Starting from the beginning. How far back should I go?
I was born a baby.
So shortly after I was a baby, I was at my grandma's house and I found like this drum, and she gave me some pencils and I started hitting it and I enjoyed that. My uncle was a drummer, so I kind of, I guess, always have been drawn towards the drums. But it wasn't until I was probably like 14 that I got into like drum set. And I met Mike Barber, Mike Barber.
Yeah.
I met him and his brother, and they were both very talented musicians. He's a great guitar player, and we wanted to start a band.
Yeah.
And all I had was this crappy plastic drum and like a floor tom. And I just remember being at that first band practice, and they were like, what are you doing? This is terrible. So I saved up my money. I bought a drum set and, started playing in different punk bands. And then I guess I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, because I didn't really want to do any like normal jobs. So I went to school for music, where, it's a very lucrative business to get into. Just kidding. In case anybody out there listening thinks I'm serious. So I went to Bucks County Community College, studied music there for like a semester or two. And I remember the first drum lesson I had with the teacher there, Mark Patorak, great drum teacher. He's like, guys, show me what you could do on the drums. And I sit down and I start playing like these blast beats from like, my punk stuff. And he's like, all right, that's enough. And I thought I was like awesome. And I thought I was like doing some really cool stuff. And he's like, all right, we got a lot of work to do. So, so he showed me like how to actually play drums, not just smash. And then, I joined this shoegaze band called Grays, which is still producing music today. And
They just had a show a couple weeks ago
That's right.
at Sweeney's, for your 40th birthday,
Yeah, I had a
right?
midlife crisis, so I figured I'd get the band back together. First show in 20 years.
You got to go with the classics, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I played in the shoegaze band. We played local shows. We played New York, Baltimore, different, East Coast stuff. Band broke up because of some drama. I moved to California, studied at Music Training Center in Hollywood, and then started teaching drums out there, started working some after-school music programs, and then started at one of the music after-school programs. They asked me to record these kids from South Central doing rap songs. So that's kind of how I got started with recording. They gave me a laptop, they gave me Logic, and they're like, here, make some music with these kids. And that was interesting. We had to try to keep them from using profanity, which was near impossible. And then they would find other ways to say things that kind of like went over our head. And
That's
we'd be
the
listening back.
creativity of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we'd catch you. We're like, I want to flip my girl. What is he trying to say here?
Yeah.
So we'd have to edit all that stuff out. And then my wife got pregnant with number 2, and my brother died. Her dad died. So we both decided, let's move back to the East Coast, move back to Philly area. Got a house, and in 2014, I had this idea to turn my 2-car garage into a recording studio. So after, a couple years of planning and a couple years of building, 2018, I opened that up, and, it's been kind of going since. That's kind of the
It's the long and short of it. Yeah.
Pretty much.
So I'm interested though, like when you were out in Baltimore, when you were doing like tours and shows on the East Coast, right? Where did you get the idea to make the jump from East Coast to West Coast? Like why Music Training Center in Hollywood?
So my cousin was getting married in Las Vegas by Elvis, and the whole family went out for the wedding.
Like actually Elvis?
Well,
I'm pretty sure Elvis was dead by then.
I mean, hey man, like
I mean,
Elvis
but
is
also
not here to judge.
But also, I don't know. He could have made a one-time appearance off of that island that he's on with Tupac right now.
Right,
And,
sure,
yeah.
right.
I mean, he said he was Elvis. I don't know. I take him for his word.
Right. So you went out for the Elvis shotgun wedding kind of deal.
Yeah, and that was in Las Vegas, and after that we went to Los Angeles, which is where my aunt and uncle live and my cousin. So we went to visit them, and I was walking down Hollywood Boulevard, and I saw this place called Music Training Center. Not Music Training Center. Never mind. That's another place I worked at. It's called Musicians Institute.
That makes more
Musicians
sense.
Institute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was like this cafe, and there was a band performing in this cafe. And I walked in there. I didn't even know it was a school. And I sat down and I asked somebody, like, yeah, what's going on here? And they're like, oh, this is our class. I was like, this is your class? This seems like, like a venue. This is interesting.
Yeah.
So then after we left, I told my aunt and uncle, I was like, oh, this is great. I would love to go to a school like that. And my aunt was like, oh, well, you could stay with us and, you can go to that
Classic
school.
relative move.
Yeah.
This time it works in your favor.
So
Yeah.
I didn't know if she knew that I was going to take her up on the offer, but I was like, all right, you're going to offer, I'll take you up on it.
Yeah.
So I felt like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah.
Because for real, they had a house in the Hollywood Hills. It was amazing. Like right at the top of the mountain, you could overlook, you saw the Hollywood sign, you saw Universal City, everything.
Yeah.
So I lived there for like a year in their house and went to school. Got a motorcycle, drove down to school every day, and
Nice.
it was fun. It was a really cool experience.
How did they have a house in Hollywood Hills? Did they what did they do?
My uncle, I guess, was mostly a real estate guy.
Okay.
So he got the house dirt cheap, and it was totally trashed when he bought it. So they did a lot of work, and he rebuilt the whole place. I think he bought it for like $60,000, and then
In
it's
what
like-
decade?
this was probably in the '60s or '70s. Something
Man, good
like
for him. Talk about real estate. Like,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
So-
And then now the house is probably worth over $1.5 million, maybe $2 million.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So how did if he was real estate. What about your aunt?
She was a hairdresser, so
Yeah, but L.A. hairdresser.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Did they have any opinions about you going to Musicians Institute?
No, they were pretty supportive. Yeah, they.
That's always helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great.
So if you said that first instance where you essentially just got given a laptop, right, and said, hey, work with producing these guys. If that happened after the fact, what did you originally go to Music Institute for?
I wanted to be a famous drummer playing with famous bands all around the world. That was the pipe dream.
Of course.
So, like, everybody has those moments.
Yeah.
Did you go there to network to try and put a band together that could do that? Or did you go there thinking you would learn how to put a band together, which then would do that, or something in between?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really give it much thought because I was in
Fair
this
enough.
weird space at the time. I was like ending this relationship with this girl I had been with, and I just needed to like kind of get away and start over and
So you go out west.
go out west.
Yeah.
Polar Geographic.
Yeah,
That's-
Polo Geographic, yo. Oh, I gotta remember that one.
So
That's definitely like the movie way to do it. That's
Yeah.
that would be a 90s movie right there.
yeah.
So what happened between like that session where you just got tossed the laptop and started producing, right? And when you exited school, right? Because somewhere between entering that school and when a lot of bad things happened in your family and you made the decision to come back to the East Coast, right?
Right.
There's definitely got to be some kind of mindset shift to where you're no longer looking to become famous and you're, kind of focusing in, becoming more practical. What was that time in your life like?
Okay. So yeah, once I finished school, I had to hustle because
Yeah.
I was working at the school I was working in the library,
Yeah.
which was a great job. I sat there and practiced on my practice pad. Nobody came in, and
Yeah. Like a Dewey Decimal System with vinyls and stuff.
yeah, we had
Like-
all kinds
Wait,
of.
that's seriously that
No.
that was the library?
It
It's like
was-
I'm picturing a rock and roll school here, so
Right, no, well,
being somewhat sarcastic,
well, it's funny because their system was very rock and roll. They're like, oh, you want that? Okay, here, But then they hired this legit, like, librarian guy who went to some library school of science, like.
No, like
I didn't even know there
It's
was
the
such
actual Dewey Decimal. It's like-
it's not actually well known, but like actual librarians, you are officially a researcher, and you need a master's degree to do that.
Oh, he had a master's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You have to have. It's crazy. Like no one would ever think without you do a Google search, you figure it out. But like most people don't think to Google something like that. Anyway, but yeah. So you were talking about the library.
Yeah, so this guy with a master's degree in library science came along,
Right.
and he was having a panic attack at the way things were being
A
run.
little
in this-
too rock and roll
yes,
for his degree.
way too
Yeah.
rock and roll. So he started like reworking the whole thing. That's a whole side story. We don't need to get into that, but the
We
point,
will later.
Yeah.
We will later.
The point of this story is I could only work at the library if I was enrolled in the school. So once I finished my 1.5-year program, I was
see.
no more employed by the library. So I had to get a real job and do something else. So I was living in an apartment in Burbank at the time with a friend of mine, and I got an offer to join a band in Orange County. So there was a short period where I was living in my car and eating out of dumpsters because I was like bare bones,
Like that is the most hardcore starving artist thing
Yeah,
that I have
starving
ever
musician,
heard,
yeah,
honestly.
exactly.
Like
Los Angeles rock and roll. But
I
today,
mean I can't imagine like eating out of dumpsters and like what was your mental health like at the time?
I don't know. I was pretty resilient. I'll tell you what though, Sbarro is the place to go.
oh, dude, I remember.
Go hit their dumpster. They would throw out a whole bag of pizza. No, there was no trash in the bag. It was just slices of pizza, and that would last me like a month. I mean, eventually I got tired of eating Sbarro, but
Man,
Yeah.
I like. There's been times where like the only source of food in my life that I had was Sbarro, and like that was a very low point in my life. But it was between where I was living and where I needed to be, and it was the only thing in between. It was that and Burger King, and I just kept like just really losing it. Was like, all right, I'm just gonna make the best out of this. All right, well, Burger King, this is gonna last me maybe 3 days before I cannot stand it. Sbarro. Sure. Why not? It's pizza. You can't go wrong with pizza.
yeah.
Yeah. So what kept you resilient during that time?
I don't know. I think it was probably my upbringing. I think, everybody in my family has been kind of resilient. You know,
It's a great trait to have. Like what parts of your upbringing do you think like really contributed to that? And then we'll tie that back in later, but
Sure.
yeah.
I guess my mom was kind of a tough love type,
Yeah.
and we always had faith in our family, so we always kind of relied on that to help get us through tough times.
Yeah.
So I think between that and just being brought up with certain virtues, I think that's probably what got me through it.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. That see, sometimes people say things and then I want to know more, but that actually just makes sense on its face. But let's see here. So when did things start to pick up for you between dumpster pizza
Right.
and the you called it a real job? What were you doing at that time? Like what was it?
So after the dumpster pizza, I moved to Orange County, and I did get a real job. Unfortunately, well, it's not unfortunate. I had to. It was.
Yeah, doing what you got to do.
Yeah, I did, and I was an industrial painter. I painted
that's interesting.
apartment complexes, and I was the only white guy there. Everybody else was.
Oh, I remember you
Orange
telling
County,
me about
man.
that.
Like,
Yeah.
Exactly. So my boss didn't speak English. Nobody I worked with spoke English, so I had no choice but
So wait,
to learn
how did you get the
Spanish.
job? So did you have to? There's a lot of like switch questions here, so I'm just gonna let you keep talking.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, like everybody in the office spoke English. Like it was a big company.
Okay.
But all the employees, and a lot of the bosses that ran the crews were all Latino.
Yeah.
So, I walked in the office. He said, "Do you know how to paint?" I said, "Yes," which was, mostly true. I did paint dumpsters for a short
Did
time.
they ask you if you knew how to speak Spanish?
They did, and I said a little bit, which was kind of a lie. But I
Like school
Hola,
Spanish.
like
¿cómo
the
estás?
classics,
Yeah.
yeah.
Donde está la
So,
biblioteca?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, I learned Spanish very fast.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I had no choice.
Yeah.
So while I was teaching, I'm not teaching. While I was painting,
Yeah.
after about 6 months of that, I just started getting burned out, and
Yeah.
I had to do something else. So I started looking for other jobs, and I got a job doing after-school programs, teaching music for after-school programs. So I would do like drumline or just boom whackers with like the little kids, just different things like that. But while all this was happening, I was actually teaching at Los Angeles City College. I was teaching a drum set class, and I got that job from one of my teachers at Musicians Institute, which was a sweet hookup. I was flipping through the catalog at Los Angeles City College, and I saw that my teacher was teaching a drum class there. And I asked him about it, and he said, "Oh yeah, I don't really feel like teaching that anymore. You want to take it over?" Which was a huge blessing, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that." So it was great because it wasn't like a formal, like for credit class. It was like for the community.
Yeah.
So it was all ages. I get a whole class full of people that wanted to learn drums, and the great thing about it was at the end of each class, people would come up to me and say, "Well, what do we do now?" And then I would give them my card, and I would say, "Well, I teach private drum lessons." So I started slowly building my private lesson student body, and while I was doing this after-school program, my private lessons were getting bigger.
So at the time that you started like building a bigger repertoire and network for your private drum lessons, were you doing that just gung-ho independently? Did you form an LLC? Like what was the organization type or method there?
It was all sole proprietorship. I didn't do any LLC or anything like that.
Yeah.
I was just kind of winging it. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, little by little, I started, making more money with the lessons. And I was playing with the band in Orange County. That wasn't really paying anything, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then after about a year, the band broke up, and I moved back to Los Angeles because I hated Orange County. I wanted to get out of there.
Yeah.
So I moved back to Hollywood, and
Sorry, real quick. So when you were doing the lessons, you were also playing in a band out there.
yes,
Yeah. What kind of band was that?
that was Coldplay meets U2.
Oh.
I mean, you just said the same thing twice.
Yo.
So,
Okay.
but it was a good experience. I learned a lot from it. But it didn't work out. And
Some keep time moving along kind of deal, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I got a call from another friend of mine who I guess was leaving this other band. There was a woman named Tiffany Madadian who was the niece of the Armenian Elvis. So I wish I could remember his name.
Like the
Wait, that-
Armenian
that
Elvis,
Elvis-
impersonator, or just the Elvis
Equivalent.
equivalent in Armenia?
Exactly.
Oh, so this
Yes.
wasn't the Elvis that...
No,
you're
not the same one that
this,
married my
okay. All right.
Yeah.
Who is the Armenian Elvis?
So I guess he's like huge in Armenia, and he's like as popular as Elvis was. And he had a niece who had a band, and this kid I went to school with, fellow drummer of mine, hit me up because I referred him to a job, so he wanted to return the favor, and he hooked me up with this, and it was a paid gig, so it was great because she had a lot of money. Her dad was rich, and I would come to rehearsals. They'd pay us for rehearsals. They'd pay us
pay
for
you
shows.
for rehearsals?
Yes, they would pay us for
Sorry, I'm
rehearsals.
just gonna say
Yeah.
that again. So they paid you. They paid you for rehearsals.
Yes.
That's
Not
wow,
a thing.
That's,
It's not a thing. That's a unicorn. That's,
Yeah, no, that's like-
is there a level beyond unicorn? Honestly, like
there is. It's flying unicorn.
it's a Pegasus.
Is
yeah.
that I know nothing about anything
That is
close
simple.
to that,
That,
but
that is simple mythology, right there. A unicorn with wings is a Pegasus. Come on.
yeah, yeah.
Did you even elementary?
So it would be.
You were cursing Greek mythology earlier, weren't you?
Was I? Wait, how? How was I cursing Greek?
Something
mythology?
about your interface.
Oh
The-
no,
the
no, 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 no,
Horus.
no, no, no. So that's the merging technologies, Horus, right?
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
so
that's
merging
Egyptian.
technologies, all of their units are named after like Egyptian gods. Now
Oh,
I don't.
Egyptian- all right, I'm-
I
So you don't even know the difference between Greece and Egypt?
I was homeschooled.
Is that what you're telling?
That's a whole other story. I went to 5th grade, and that was
there's a
about the
reason.
end of it.
Yeah. It's interesting though. So like, I don't know what were those practices like? You know, the ones you're getting paid to do.
They were great because I was getting paid.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Now I did have to, be prepared because it was
it's-
it was more
you get
professional.
paid,
so I had to
you
step
know?
up my game a little bit. you
Yeah,
know? So I
definitely.
showed up prepared. I made sure I had charts for the songs. I listened to it, and I tried to be professional.
You had charts.
Yeah.
What kind of charts?
I would just listen to the recordings, and I would write out my own.
Oh,
chart.
you wrote okay. Yeah.
Makes sense.
That would, like if they supplied the charts, like that would honestly be really, really like unexpectedly organized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been.
All right.
So like you were coming prepared, you felt like more inclined to be professional about it. Like were they paying you well? Were you able to like do what else were you doing at the time? Like was that your whole thing?
I was doing that. I was teaching at the college, and then I started
you were teaching at the college.
at 2 other colleges because I figured if it works at this college, I'll hit up these other colleges and do the same classes there.
Yeah.
So I started doing that at like 3 different colleges, and I also had a ton of drum students that I built from doing the college classes.
Yeah. So this is interesting. So there was the first place you were at, the Music Institute, right? And at that time you couldn't really work there unless you were enrolled there, right?
Right.
So like what type of process was it to like, kind of supplement the income by working at other colleges? Like what did you have to show them? What was it like to begin working there in addition to whatever else you were doing? But like what was the point of entry? Like what were they asking you about?
to get into.
Yeah, to get hired, then teach at like the additional colleges. Because unless you were enrolled there as well, I imagine there's some other kind of formal process. I just don't know how it works for a music school.
Well, I was teaching at Los Angeles City College, not at Musicians Institute.
Yeah.
Two different colleges.
Is there a difference in the requirements that they had?
Well, I think I had a resume at that point that was working for me because I had already been teaching at this other college. So I say to this college, "Hey, I'm teaching a class at this college," and they say, "Oh, okay, you can do ours too." You know.
Cool.
So that was pretty much all I needed.
So essentially the certification required is, do you know how to teach? Do you know how to play the instruments?
Right.
That's
I
pretty
mean,
cool.
I feel like I'm hearing really heavy. Do you know how to teach? Have you taught before in a professional setting? Because like I don't think the private lessons would have been remotely good enough.
You just gotta understand like the structure the school wants to follow and stuff. Or did they give you a curriculum or anything?
No, the other teacher that used to teach there, Chuck Silverman.
Yeah.
God rest his soul. He was an amazing guy.
Yeah.
Very talented musician. Wrote books. He was an Afro-Cuban drummer who.
Oh.
Well, he was Jewish. Jewish, and he lived in Florida, and he would sit on the radio as a child and tune into the Cuban radio station.
Yeah, dude.
And he got obsessed with it.
Yo, that's how it's done.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And he
nice.
went to Cuba, and he studied with all those guys, and he wrote these books about it. He was amazing. And if it wasn't for him getting me into that first college, then I definitely wouldn't have been able to get into those other colleges.
Yeah. So like at the time where like you were getting paid to rehearse, you were still doing private lessons at the time, and you were also teaching in schools, right?
Right.
Like what were you bringing in each year? Like what kind of life were you living?
I was not living large.
Well, no, but
I was paying my rent.
Yeah.
I was paying my car insurance.
Yeah.
You know, I was eating. You know,
Was
not
it-
good food, but
Yeah,
you
but
know.
Enough
like
to
the
survive.
basics are there,
Yeah.
right? So like, were you having fun?
Yeah, I was enjoying my life. Yeah.
So like at that point in your life, what was next for you? Like you, it seems like you were filling a lot of stuff in to make ends meet, like everyone does, right?
Right.
So, what was on your mind at that time? What was the next goal you were trying to formulate for yourself?
I guess I was trying to step it up in the more professional drumming world. Like there was a few studios where I would go and I would play session drumming for different people. I would do fill-in for bands here and there. But I wanted to get my foot in a door.
Yeah.
Which,
So you were knocking on all of them.
yeah, I was trying
Yeah.
to knock on all the doors. The problem with Los Angeles is that it is
There's a lot of doors.
there's a lot of doors and there's a lot of competition.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that go there to do the exact same thing that I was going there to do.
Right.
So it was a hustle, and I had to do a lot of hustling. So it was exhausting after a point.
Yeah.
When was that point?
I guess when I decided to move back, like I didn't really want to go. It was mostly my wife, and I was fighting her on it. And, eventually, I realized that was the right move. Even though I didn't want to do it personally, I had no desire to move back. But after giving a lot of, consideration and thought, and, yeah,
Things just kind of started to tumble, and you see the writing on the wall, kind of deal.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I first moved back to PA, I did feel resentment. I was like, I'm giving up this. Like to me back then, like that was like the
was
prized
Los
possession.
Angeles.
Yeah, this is Los Angeles. I'm living the dream.
Yeah.
But looking back on it now, I'm like, I didn't have anything. Like there was a lot of life lessons I learned there, but I was hustling very hard, and I wasn't moving very fast.
Okay. I really want to know, like, I guess, like, of course there were the ups and downs of being in that lifestyle. What's something that you'd say you're really proud to have learned from that?
I guess the important lesson is to not give up. I didn't give up. Like I didn't even think about giving up. Like there was never I didn't want to do anything else. I knew this is what I wanted to do. I just it wasn't ideal.
So this is interesting, right? There are times where, like, sure, there might be one or two yahoos out there who are like, It's like, oh, other people should give up because I'm giving up, and you know, you just kind of tune them out, whatever. But then there are times where like life circumstances kind of seem to like send you a signal, like maybe now's the time to throw in the towel. And then sometimes, depending on your mindset in those moments, right, you can see everything in existence telling you, nah, dude, it's too much, and you're like, yeah, I just don't care. So like, like I don't know. Like, was there ever a moment where like the way that things came together indicated to you that something was like kind of trying to tell you like, hey, this is too much, it's too exhausting, move in a different direction, but you just kind of kept muscling on through it? Was there ever a time like that?
No, I don't think so.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just like blind to it, but like.
Well, that's kind of the thing I'm talking about. Like, you know, you put the blinders on, you keep going. You know, so like sometimes I know that like, especially people who like are creatively have like creative proclivities, right? Mm-hmm. Like sometimes when you become uncertain about things, right? You almost start to like look for the signals out there to be like, all right, well, I know I want to keep going, but something might give me the indication that this ain't the way to go. And you start looking for it, and eventually you'll find it when you could have just, you know, made the decision in the first place. But it's interesting to just fix the blinders and keep going, you know? So,
yeah, I mean, I feel like that kind of hyper focus is like, it's a finicky thing.
Yeah.
'Cause I feel like we've all heard so-called horror stories of people who have had that kind of hyper focus for their lives, not gotten what they wanted, but also not figured out how to keep rolling with the punches and how to learn something from what's happened to them.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely something to be said about having the self-awareness, having the wherewithal to be able to be able to learn those lessons and keep that focus and stay on the path for something that you want. Do you think that I guess two questions. Do you think, you already said you didn't really feel yourself waver at all, but was that also a thing that came from childhood?
I guess what I believe is that this was supposed to be what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
You know, those were all stepping stones to where I am now, and this is just a stepping stone to where I'm going to be in 10 years from now.
So that makes me wonder. So when the time came to move back east, right? Did it feel like somebody was ripping the blinders off and you didn't know where you were going?
Yeah, I guess kind of.
Yeah.
Like not the blind. Like I guess I felt I was being.
It felt like someone was like trying to knock you off the track you were going. Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's
Right.
why I had that resentment when I first moved back, and that's why I was like so against moving back, because I felt like I had worked so hard to
Right.
build all this
Right.
stuff. I had all these different gigs doing all different types of random musical things that was paying the bills.
It's like, you know, the clear sight to the distance vanishes into the proximity, and you're like, that doesn't make any goddamn sense. What the hell is that, you know?
Yeah, and it was all going away, and I had to start from scratch.
Yeah.
In a totally different place.
So back east, right? Like, when did you start to feel like you could see the track again, right? Like you started, like, you know, trucking forward once again.
Right. So when I first moved back, I remember going on a job interview. This was funny because I needed to get a job. Like back when I got the painting job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I came back and I applied to different music schools to try to get teaching jobs, but I wasn't getting anything right away.
Yeah.
So I was like, I guess I'll try to get a regular job again. Mm-hmm. So I think it was like an insurance sales job or something.
Yeah.
And I remember going into this room, and there was all these other people who were also getting jobs there or trying to get jobs. And I had my resume, and I sat down with the guy to like discuss my resume and my experience and why I wanted this job so bad. And they were like asking me these questions like, "So do you have experience with sales?" No. So do you think you would, be good in sales? No, I hate sales. I was just like, I couldn't help but to be honest. And they're like, well, why are you here? And I'm like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, I guess that kind of sums up this interview. Have a nice day. Yeah. And then I went back and I just started hustling a little harder to try to find something music related. And then I got a job at Music Training Center, and that was an awesome place to work.
Around like what year did you like when you were back? You started working for Music Training Center.
So really, how long was you were about
between
to
the
say?
move back and starting to work at Music Training Center?
It was probably only like a month or so.
That's not bad at all.
It wasn't
That's just
bad,
like,
but it felt like an eternity.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah, you're still unpacking boxes, but it's an eternity later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I got a job teaching drum lessons there. They had me teach like a rock band class there, and like, within a few months, I had a pretty good schedule there, teaching lessons consistently, and that was kind of paying the bills. But all while I'm doing this, I'm living at my mother-in-law's house, and I love my mother-in-law, but it was just very difficult.
Yeah.
Of course.
To not have my own space.
So were you and your wife living in your mother-in-law's?
And my 2 babies.
Oh boy.
Oh my God.
So like when you came home each day, like what was the look you usually got? Was it like, you got this, man, or was it like, where have you been?
It was
kind of a blend, maybe.
Well, yeah, me and my wife were going through a tough time as well because of the whole situation that was going on.
Can't be easy.
Yeah, it was a rocky point in our marriage.
Yeah.
And I didn't think we were going to come out of it. So that's a whole miracle story in and of itself. The fact that I am happily married today.
Yeah.
After going through the stuff that we went through, but yeah, we had to get our own place, and we were looking for apartments. We were looking for houses, and nothing was like working out. And then I was talking to my mom, and she said, "Well, do you want to buy my house? And I'll give you a good deal on it. But it's only under one condition. You have to build an in-law suite in the basement."
Oh.
Yeah.
It's funny. Like when we used to rent this place for like 2 years, right? Then we bought it when we got this call from the fiery old Cuban woman who used to be our landlord. It was like, "Hey, we're about to sell it, so get out." Then we called her back immediately, like, "Dude, we'll just buy it," Anyway, but my mom actually offered me the exact same thing. She's like, "Oh yeah, you can just buy my house. I just, we got to build the in-law suite." I'm like, "Mom, we've already signed. We're already signing the papers for this house." Like, I just want to throw it out there, And I'm like, "Yeah, I got you. I got you. Thank you. I love you, Mom. I'll call you tomorrow." Anyway, but I don't know. I just think it's so familiar.
Yeah,
anyway,
that's funny.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was a concern for my wife because she knew that living with her mom, was difficult. Like I said,
you gotta have space to live your own.
Exactly. So I had to set clear boundaries with my mom, saying, "All right, this is your house. This is our house. We got our own separate entrances and all that."
So you took the offer.
I did.
Yeah.
So I bought my mom's house, and I spent a year building the in-law suite myself because I couldn't afford to pay a contractor.
Yeah.
So like I'm on YouTube looking up how to do electrical, how to do HVAC, how to do plumbing.
Oh, you went all in?
You
went all in, just like, I'll figure it out.
Yep. So
YouTube University, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
did it work and not burn down? And
it's still there. She's still living there.
Ventilation's good.
Ventilation's
lighting's good.
Yeah.
YouTube University, man.
The only person I really hired was a guy to put a French drain in because the basement would get like 3 inches of water.
Yeah, that's the tough
one.
one.
You can't live.
Tell me what a French drain is.
So they would jackhammer the entire perimeter of the basement, and they would put stones and like corrugated pipes funneling to like a sump pump.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
So that did the trick. So it's been dry as a bone down there, and
nice.
Yeah, she's living down there happily, and
you still live at the same house?
Yeah.
Nice.
And that's the house that had this awesome 2-car garage, which we gutted and turned into Light and Sound Studio.
So, I'm really interested. So, like, what were the conversations like You know, like, well, okay, let me back up a sec. So at this point, how old are your kids?
So when we moved into that house, I think my son was maybe 3 and my daughter was 1, something like that.
Okay. So still a lot of attention, but not old enough to, like, you know, really kind of start putting the screws to everything going on, you know.
I think I have a couple videos of my son using the screw gun.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Sure. Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
exactly.
All right. So, like, at the time where, you know, you made... What was it like making the decision to say, I want to build a production studio, I want to make it here, I'm going to put it in the garage? What was that time in your life like? What were those conversations like? How did you make it happen?
So once we bought the house, we had to kind of make it our own and, you know, redo the whole thing. And I had private lessons that I wanted to do at the house, the same like I did in California. So I converted the upstairs bedroom into kind of like a lesson room. Mm-hmm. So I would have, you know, people come to the house and I would do drum lessons in the upstairs bedroom.
Yeah.
And then I also got back with that band Grays, and we would start practicing up there, and we started recording up there.
Yeah.
I figured, you know, might as well get some use out of that knowledge I had from South Central, recording those inner city kids.
Yeah.
And start using it with the band that I used to be in.
Yeah.
And you know, we put out an album, and you know, there was a few other people that, you know, heard I had like a little makeshift studio in my upstairs room. So
was it like getting back together with the band was what began to develop
that
your
kind of inspired
greater understanding of like the engineering process, the production process?
Exactly.
I think so. Wait, you decided to begin building the studio before, right?
So I decided to build the studio after, I think. Yeah, after we released that album. So, like, I worked, you know, on the song, and then I had this other guy that would come, and he would record some of his originals. So I was kind of using it as a recording studio.
Yeah.
It was very makeshift.
Yeah.
And I saw that there was potential, and I really enjoyed it. I loved recording.
You kind of, like, get the whiff of potential, like, it's over there. For whatever it's worth. I did literally the exact same thing. So, like, you know, I'm not... like doing it before, like you see the opportunity and you start pursuing it. You don't know where it's going to take you, but you know it's an opportunity.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it was like I said, 2014 is when I had the idea to take the garage and turn it into a studio.
Interesting.
I didn't know what that was going to look like. Like when I first thought of it, I was like, oh yeah, I'll just, you know, put a little soundproofing and, you know, put some microphones.
So that process, right? Like the soundproofing, right? Like there's so many different ways to do that, right? So I'm sure as time went on, you had to begin learning more and more. Like, what does it look like today, and what is the soundproofing part of it like?
Soundproofing is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely did a lot of research. I talked to other studio guys, and they kind of gave me their tips and tricks. The big benefit of that garage is that it's cinder block.
Oh.
Yes.
Like filled cinder block?
No, not filled, unfortunately.
Okay.
One of the walls is half filled because I filled it. There was a window, I busted out, and I put filled cinder blocks in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a nice, strong cinder block foundation, and then I went about 6 inches out from that wall, and I, you know, put studs, and then I put Homosote soundboard on top of that.
Yep.
Then I put birch plywood on top of that.
Oh, nice.
And then I put some of these wedge foams on top of that. And then I have like a half wall that I used like just what do they call it, shiplap, or I basically got pallets and I stained them and I put them on the bottom half.
Nice.
So it looks very pretty, and I spent a lot of time doing it. Originally, I just thought, oh, I'll just throw this stuff up. But like as I started doing it,
and then the more that you begin to learn, you're like, wait, there's like 8 different stages to this. Like,
yeah. Well, it wasn't even that. It was more of like it became like art for me.
Right.
That definitely makes sense for you, because I know, like, knowing you, approaching this as like as a science, as like, well, this needs to be done this way if I want to make sure that that's not how you think.
Right.
Not remotely.
So I was, as I started building stuff, I just started seeing possibilities, and seeing ideas. I was like, oh, well, I can do this, I can do that. And then my one friend, Jason, who's like a part owner of the studio, he came in one day, and it's got, it's probably like a 10-foot ceiling all the way through.
Nice.
And he's like, "Oh, dude, it would be so cool if you can just get rid of these beams and we could have a cathedral ceiling."
I forgot that was his idea. Yeah.
That was his idea.
Meanwhile, above it is the practice space, right?
No, this is in the garage.
The practice space is in the house.
So it's in the house. It's not
in the house.
Okay, sorry for a second. I was thinking the drum space was like above, but no.
No, that was in the upper.
No, so you actually like you
No
had the
room for that,
option to like cut it open and start going up, right?
There was like a little access area, so you
Yeah.
could go up there. It was filled with junk up there originally.
Of course, yeah.
And once he said that, I couldn't unsee it.
Right. Right. Sorry, no, I know that feeling of like once you're aware of something, you can't really not be aware of it anymore, and you're like, oh, man, why would you tell that to me?
Yeah.
So I had no choice
Yeah.
but to rip the ceiling down.
yeah.
And I remember being at Home Depot, talking to this guy that worked there. A lot of the people that work at Home Depot don't know anything about construction.
Yes.
But thank God I talked to this old retired construction worker who was working there, was very knowledgeable. And then I was like, yeah, I was thinking about, taking out these beams and, just having an open ceiling, is that cool? He was like, well, if you take those beams out, the
whole
roof
thing's
is gonna collapse. So I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. So I had to get, I forget what they're called, but I had to put beams in, like up higher, like every 4 feet to prevent the roof from caving in.
Right.
And I had to do all kinds of research on structural engineering and all this other crazy stuff to make it happen. But I was committed and I had to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and dude, like the things that like you end up having to do just because somebody said something to you without thinking about it.
Right.
Man, like
And
I think for me that's like quote unquote one of the most lucrative parts of working on the backside of music because that happens literally all the time.
Yeah,
The rest of
like
it, lucrative.
I feel like that goes to show about just the stick-to-itiveness that you were talking about, the resilience that you
stick to it.
stick-to-it-iveness.
Sorry, I actually thought that was a full word for a second. I was like, that's a really cool word. I've never heard it before.
No, yeah, it's like it's one of those like almost words that
Stick-to-itiveness.
I feel like it was a big corporate thing in like the mid 2000s because it was a big TED Talk thing.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's the resilience that you were talking about from eating trash Sparrow to all the way to now like learning construction so that you can facilitate your music career. Like I think that if you hadn't had the willingness to go out of your way to learn these things that don't feel like they're really a part of the deal, you wouldn't have been able to do this, would you?
Right. Yeah. So I had no choice but to learn so many things that I had never planned on learning just to make it happen.
Was that an enjoyable process, learning new stuff like that?
It's so weird. Like I was never really handy. I never fixed things. I never, I might work on my car,
Yeah.
All right. So
ways, but
I worked with you for like 6 months or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe you when you say that.
It's his definition of it. Right?
no, but listen to this.
Yeah.
After my dad died, he was a master carpenter. He could fix anything.
Yeah.
Somehow his skills just magically flowed into me.
One
and
of those. One of those.
That's what it felt like.
That's a good one of anything.
I just felt like I just knew how to build stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to think about it. I was like, oh, 2x4, you cut it here, you measure it this, you just screw it. Okay, plumbing, you just do this. Like I just knew how to do stuff. Like I never knew how to do stuff before, and now I know how to do stuff.
You know the scene from the first Matrix where Neo gets out of the training simulator with Morpheus, and he's like, "I know kung fu."
Yes. That's what happened. I know carpentry.
That's pretty sweet.
I have always wondered how you're able to balance being a studio owner, right? Being a music teacher, homeschooling your kids.
Well, that's a curveball. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's times where you see like that generic thing of the spark flying between two connectors and stuff. It's yeah, that's a great place to start.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us about how that works.
Sure, yeah. I don't even know how it all works.
Yo.
Well, I'll tell you what. I got to give credit to my wife because she takes care of a lot of that. You know, we got 4 kids, so 4 kids is a lot of
for you,
kids,
man.
and we're homeschooling the kids. You know,
Yeah.
the 2 younger ones not so much because they're 2 years old and 4 years old.
Yeah,
But
they'll get there.
yeah,
Yeah.
so she is the one that does most, I should just say all of the homeschooling. I'll try to butt my head in there here and there and try to help out, but it usually winds up back.
Yo.
I get kicked out of the house.
So like, I mean, but like this is what she's doing full time.
Yeah, well, she's a fine art photographer as well. And
Yes,
kind of has her own
yeah.
little side business, but yeah, it's not the type of job where she has to be dedicating
So you
a ton
both
of
are
time
like
to it.
professional jugglers, essentially.
Yes, yeah, like
Yeah.
2 starving artists got married and have 4 kids and are doing okay.
Have 4 kids, own your house too.
Yes. We have a house. We got 2 cars. We got 4 kids, and we're not starving. We're paying the bills. We're not in debt. You
Is
know,
the
it's-
studio responsible for the brunt of that?
Yeah, I would say probably, I don't know, 60 or 80% of our income comes through the studio. You know,
And how recent is that development?
seems like every year we're doing a little better.
Yeah.
So every
So
year.
like in the early stages, while everything was still under construction, like what was your wife doing to like kind of compensate? Because no matter what, that's got to be a team effort.
Yeah, I remember one year I was doing taxes and I just felt really embarrassed because she made more money than me that year. And I was like, uh-oh, I better step it up. And yeah, that's when I was kind of transitioning from teaching at Music Training Center to go into Light and Sound Studio. And that was a slow process. You know, it was like I was working at Music Training Center 7 days a week, then 6 days, then 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1, and then
Yeah.
so I kind of gradually shifted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is the studio making more money off of clients or off of teaching right now?
Off of recording and videos. Yes.
So
Okay.
like more
'Cause
video than audio?
I would say it's about 50-50.
Okay. That's pretty
Yeah.
nice. That's
Yeah.
good diverse clientele.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I finally am pretty close to what I was calling my ideal dream job like 3 or 4 years ago. Because before I was doing like 90% teaching and 20%, you know, video and audio. And I was like, I would be happy if I was doing like a third teaching, a third video, and a third audio. And that's kind of where it roughly is now.
So this is kind of interesting. For all of the stories that you've described to us, they have a pretty heavy focus in music and audio, right? Where did the video element come in?
That came from Hollywood.
Just
Being
the
around
answer is
Hollywood.
just
Hollywood
Yes.
infected you.
Yes,
You-
100%. I just, just living in Hollywood and being around all this, all the movie stars and all that stuff. Like half of my friends were actors and were trying to make it as actors.
Classic.
And, you know, I had friends that like had cameras and they would, you know, film stuff. So, and my wife was a photographer and.
Yeah.
I never really cared about photography until she kind of inspired me to like become more interested in that. And I still remember what she said. She's like, I was just always fascinated as a kid that I could just push this button and I could capture that moment forever.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting to me. And, you know, I looked at photography differently. And I was like, oh, yeah, just take pictures, you know, who cares? You know? But she looked at it a different way.
Your studio offers photography as well, right?
Yeah.
Is
yeah.
that because of her?
I guess it is, yeah.
Yeah. Does she do it for your studio, or do you have somebody else who does it?
She does it if I really twist her arm, but she likes to do her own thing.
Yeah.
And I
Fair
try not
enough.
to bother her with that stuff. So I kind of learned how to do it myself, or I'll
Yeah.
get my buddy Jason to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're starting to paint like a pretty good picture here. I'm starting to get a good understanding of like where you came from, how you got to where you are. Now, like I have some questions that I'm definitely interested in, and by any and all means, you do not have to answer any of them. So, I'm interested. You said that like you and your wife you guys met out west. Is that right?
No, oh, that's
No.
a whole other story. She used to date my best friend.
Wait, which one? Is this the one that I've heard of? Is this the one that I've met?
Ed Neary? I don't know. You may have met him.
I don't think so.
That's how it happens sometimes, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, you guys, you said you were both starving artists, right?
Yeah, I was starving a little more than she was.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, like, was it kind of like, was it a literal plan from the beginning that, like, hey, like, it's not going to be great, but we're going to make this work? Or did it just kind of develop into, like, this, like, kind of good dichotomy where you're able to play off of each other when things are tough?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really think about it. Like, I didn't think, oh, we're both artists trying to make it. Like, we just liked each other. And, you know, we wanted to get married. And, you know, I didn't even realize that, like, until probably like 5 years ago when I was like reflecting on my life, like, oh, we're both like artists and somehow we're doing this.
That's interesting. So, like, what that tells me is that you guys had enough going on and you guys, you know, kept your eyes on the prize frequently enough to where, you know, you never really had to wonder about that. And honestly, it sounds pretty nice. You know, like what I don't know. And frankly, from what I'm hearing, it might. I'd be interested in talking to her and something.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing because I really want to know how. I know nothing about the world of fine art photography and how
not a damn
she's
thing.
like, how,
dude.
how is she able to keep that to sustain a business that's even like you said basically 20 to 40% of the income that's like sustaining a 6-person family.
Right. Yeah.
But like at the beginning, like, you know, she was picking up a little bit more, right? So she had to get a little more crafty, a little more engaged. Well, you guys were also raising some kids at home. You know, that's gonna I guess what I'm wondering is that, like, if you were able to stay focused enough, that got you to where you are now, right? No matter what, there's always something happening in the background where sometimes trajectory keeps you going, and then other times things got to be reassessed constantly. And I'd be interested to hear like what she was doing and how she was viewing it, because, you know, it's like I was saying before, like, none of this kind of stuff happens without teamwork, right? And the way that you guys have managed to pull this off, you know, with the house, with the kids, with the businesses, and the homeschooling, that's crazy, man. And like, I don't know. That's
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
how long you guys been married for?
Coming up on 14 years.
That's pretty sweet, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet,
Yeah.
man. That's nice. Like I there's like too many questions that keep evolving in my mind from this, but like I just gotta hand it to you, man. That is not easy, and you guys pulled it off. So, all right, let's coming back in on topic here.
Yeah.
So you began to build a studio, and you saw that you needed to start making more, and you had the sense of opportunity, and you kept along the trajectory that you were on, and that's what got you to where you were today. So it incorporated some video, it incorporated some audio, and some photo, right? So what came first, and how did that influence the almost like continual construction of the space?
So I guess one of the first motivations for the studio was actually probably because of my wife, because she was I shouldn't say constantly, but she wasn't too happy with strangers coming in and out of the house.
Right.
And like going in, going upstairs, and like,
course.
then coming down using the bathroom, and like,
Ooh.
so I was like, all right, I got to get these people out of the house. How? Oh, garage. There we go. So
Nice.
that was kind of the initial motivation for that move.
Yeah.
And then as I was building it, I kept, you know, seeing different possibilities, and I kept going. And then even after I built it, she was still complaining because there was no bathroom. So they would come out of the studio and go into the house to use the bathroom.
Man, I just got to throw this out there. Some of the most like now obvious, but like some of the most like important parts of some of the things that I do over here literally would not have happened if like my wife wasn't constantly talking to me about it. And like the value of just like having someone on the outside just remind you of the basics. It's so important because like, you know, the blinders that get put up sometimes it can miss some of the obvious things, and like,
Right.
you know, it's good to keep your ears open and listen. to
Yeah,
what
I mean, I
people are
was
telling
perfectly
you.
fine with everybody going in the house using the bathroom.
Sure, but
then-
it adds something, you know, like when it becomes more defined and it becomes more constructed, it adds like an extra % each time to like what people expect when they come in. It adds to their experience, and that adds to your ability to be a professional unto their project. And so like,
And then
the
like
way- yeah.
beyond that, like you're also reminded that you're not just, while you have your blinders on and you're focused on being the professional in this way, you're focused on being the artist in this way, you're not just the artist. You're definitely not just the artist to her, and you're not just the artist to your kids. And like that's a balance that you gotta hold, right?
Yeah. No, I'm not an artist at all to them. I'm dad, I'm husband, I have a totally different set of hats that I need to wear when I'm at home.
Yeah. So getting back to the question here. So did you begin with the idea of it just being music?
Well, I thought she's a photographer,
Right.
so I thought, oh, well, I can build this for her and for me. You know, mostly for me. You know, but she can use it too. So that's actually part of the reason why we came up with the light and sound, because she's the light, I'm the sound. Right.
That's cute. I like that. I like that a lot.
How have you never said that before? I've never heard you say that before.
I don't think I ever
but
said
that's
that before, actually. But it's true, right? And that's why I had that cyc wall in the back. I have like this, I don't know if you know what a cyc wall is, like a zero wall where it's like an infinity, kind of curves from the floor and goes up like this.
Yeah, no shadows, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a wall curves this way, no corner, and it curves
Wait, so
up
did
like
you
that.
construct that wall?
I constructed
What the
that.
hell was that like, man?
That was a nightmare.
Yeah, like
That happened. I think you were saying that happened like right before I started interning with the studio, right?
Yeah. I think, When did you start coming around?
It was 2 Januaries ago,
Okay.
I think.
No, this
No, sorry. It might be 3 Januaries ago, actually.
sorry, on the January before last.
Yes.
Anyway.
But it was one of those things, like, before my friend mentioned the ceiling, and I was like, oh, great, I have to rip the ceiling out.
Oh.
I was like, someone gave me the idea, I think it was my friend Nick Keppel, because he's an artist, and he was like, oh, it'd be really cool if you could put one of those cyc walls. And I was like, oh,
Why would you tell me that? Like, God, how do you build something that's seamless? Anyway.
Yeah, so
like, actually seamless.
lots
There
of
are no
spackle.
seams.
lots
of spackle.
and lots, like buckets of spackle.
Did you have to, like... So when you were, like, building that area, did you have to do anything with, like, power ceiling mounting so you would be able to, like, cast light at different areas of the... I've never built a wall like that, but,
Right.
like, did you have to do, like, additional construction just
For the lighting? No, I have a bunch of soft boxes, and
okay.
usually they work good.
Like
enough to get the job
on
done.
all, you remember how he was saying the 4-foot separated joists in the ceiling that had they have
so you
all the
ju-
cam
okay.
lights mounted on them.
Right, I do have lights
It's pretty
mounted on them.
evenly lit. Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had to take these big sheets of thin plywood, and I had to soak them in water so that I can bend them, like basically like making a half pipe, you know.
Yeah.
And I had to put these like half moon shaped support beams in there.
Yeah.
And then the corner that meets the corner was very difficult. I had to cut all these like weird pizza shaped things and try to fit them in there. Like if you look at it, like before I
How
put all
long
the
did it take you?
It took a couple weeks. Yeah.
A couple weeks. Good for you, man. Like, you know, because like amidst everything else, like how many hours a day were you spending on just doing that section?
It's all blur, but like any waking moment I had, I was in there.
Yeah.
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 Building. And then I had to build a bathroom. And
that still isn't finished.
I had to dig a
You gotta
trench.
become a plumber all of a sudden.
I had to
Like,
become
yeah,
a plumber
yeah,
again.
become a
Yeah,
plumber.
so I had to dig this giant trench that went from the studio to the house
Yeah.
for all the sewage to drain.
Yeah.
And then I had to run plumbing in, and I had to build a whole extension that comes off. And
How much money do you think you saved by doing it yourself instead of going with contractors?
Thousands. I was thinking of it the other day. Someone else asked me, but I would imagine. I did get a quote because we were originally going to put the in-law suite in here,
Right.
but the township wouldn't let us.
Yeah.
That's a whole other story. And they wanted like $75,000 to do that. So
Couldn't just drive out to Lancaster and drive one back on a on a flatbed.
right, exactly. And that didn't include the bathroom and
yeah.
the vocal booth extension. So I didn't actually calculate it, but I know it was way less than
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think if you had gone with a contractor with it, like the place wouldn't have nearly as much character as
would
it
look
does.
totally different.
Like,
You're right.
Yeah. It's just it wouldn't even. There's so much that adds to just the creative process.
Right.
Like the singing booth, the vocal booth is like it's. It's this small room, this small wooden room that like I first off, I love the place because I worked on that spot a lot. Like I glazed all of the wood in there. I put up the foam mounts in there and it's just it feels you were able to make it feel so homely and so eclectic because it's got this big old sauna door on the front of it that
nice.
you just found.
Yeah.
So where did you find that again?
There was a place called Philly Reclaim,
Oh.
and
Yeah.
have you been there?
Yeah.
That place was
spot.
awesome.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they went out of business.
They did?
Yeah.
Over COVID?
unfortunately. I think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like a giant Home Depot that sold
Yeah, I forgot-
all kinds
I
of
forgot they closed
used
down.
stuff from deconstructed Philly homes.
Yeah.
So they had the sauna door in there. I saw it and I said, "Oh, that's a vocal booth door.
Yeah.
I'm taking that for $20."
$20.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I know. It was unbelievable. There was this giant beam that I had to put in there. I went to a couple lumber yards to get quotes. They wanted like $400 for beams. I went to Philly Reclaim, same beam, 25 cents. I was like, wait a minute, are you sure this is 25 cents? He's like, yeah, this is in, the 25-cent pile. Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
So I saved a ton of money there.
That's like honestly, that's the thing that I really respect about you. There's the resiliency and there's the ingenuity that you have in the way that you made your space. So like there's that vocal booth. You go through that sauna door. There's this other sliding door that you go through.
Yep.
There's the bathroom. And it feels like walking through two completely separate worlds. I'm doing great marketing for you right now. It feels like walking through just two completely separate worlds. I feel like it speaks so much to what you can do if you have the mindset to achieve it, if you choose not to give up, if you choose to do things the way that feels right to you. And I think there are a couple different places that I want to go with it, but I'm gonna actually kind of, unless you wanted to say something real quick.
Oh, I
because
got.
I see you.
So I think we're coming up on maybe like hour 15 here. So there's a couple like key things I wanted to start honing in on. But dude, have at it, man. Like good questions are good questions.
There was a couple that I had written. With all that you've had to teach yourself to be able to get to where you are and feel comfortable where you are, what do you think is one of the biggest things that you've learned about yourself?
I guess I learned that impossible seemingly impossible things are totally doable if you just
decide to do it.
do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you just decide to do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, because the studio now, like the way it is, the way it looks, is not at all what I had in my mind when I first came up with the idea. It's a million times better than I could ever imagine. But again, like I said, like my dad passed away, I became a carpenter. Like I can't take credit for that. I don't remember going to carpentry school. You know what I mean? So like, there's there's something going on. You know what I mean? That I have no control over, and I'm just trying to do the next thing that needs to be done. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm gonna start kind of drawing like a clear line here because there's a couple of details I'm missing. So what year did you actually like go out west to go to Music Institute?
Musicians Institute. Yeah,
Institute.
that was 2005.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were out. So took about roughly like 9-10 years before came back out east.
7 years total.
7 years.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And
Yeah,
then
we
you
moved
came
in
back.
2012.
You got the house. You started constructing what you needed to. So, I've met people with your personality type before, and a lot of the times, some of them are pretty good at keeping pedal to the metal, and other times, some of them get in their own head, right? So, looking back, if you were to give yourself some advice, right, would you actually give yourself any advice? Because your attitude seems to be almost like pinpoint perfect for this entire thing, which is the thing, right? So like, imagine like somebody else trying to like follow the exact same path, right? Like, what would you want them to know so they can believe for themselves that it's possible? And what would be the very first thing that they should be focusing on?
So,
Imagine there's some things getting in their way, right?
right. So that's the thing. Like, because you said, what advice would I give myself?
Yeah.
I think I would give myself advice that's like unrelated to accomplishing all this.
Sure.
I think the advice I would give myself is don't forget about the relationships in your life.
Yeah.
Don't forget about your wife. Don't forget about your kids. Don't forget about your mom. Because when you become so hyper-focused on accomplishing these sorts of tasks, it's easy to just, spend hours and days just focused on getting this one thing done and forget about, the people in your life.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at today. I'm trying to have a much better balance of, yes, I got to get all this stuff done for my job and for the things that I want to accomplish professionally, but I need to also make sure that the people in my life are being loved and taken care of.
So this is the perfect way to round off this entire conversation. So how are you doing with it? What are you trying? What's working? What's not working? Because no matter what, if you're working creatively in any capacity, sometimes things get difficult with that, right? So like, what are you trying today? How is it different from what you were trying? What's working for you? And like, where are you really starting to see that like, that tangible emotional connection really start to give back to what you're doing?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, like in 2013, our marriage was on the rocks. 2013 up to like 2016 or 20, yeah, probably so, like.
Things take time.
Yeah, like it was many years of just like, what do you call it? Misery, I would call it. Yeah, it was miserable for both of us.
Yeah.
And we didn't really know how it got to that point. It was like a slow burn. And it took a couple years to get out of that. And I had to reevaluate my life. I had to change everything about myself so that I could fix it. Like we were both like on the verge of divorce. Like she didn't want to be married to me. She, so, and I read books. I talked to, a lot of friends, priests. Yeah. I talked to whoever I could talk to, and I tried to like figure out my side of the street, to like get my act together. And I did this thing called the Love Dare, It didn't do anything the first time, so I did it a second time. It's like 40 days where you try all these different things.
I've never heard of that, but right on.
So I was like, all right, it didn't work. Waste of time. I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
And the second time, it kind of worked a little bit. So I was like, okay, wasn't a waste of time this time. Cool. Anyway, fast forward to where we are now. We were like happily married after like a couple years of trying to get through that misery stage. And then we had our miracle baby, Florence. I call her my miracle baby because I didn't think we'd ever have any more babies. And then we have another baby.
Yep.
So, but we're kind of like, I guess like the past like 6 months or so, I feel like have been kind of like declining, not to anywhere near where it was before, but I'm like, okay, it's going to be a slow burn like it was last time. Okay, I got to correct it now before it ever gets even close to
like, you know, with you don't need to get into any personal details, but like what kind of like emotional indicators are you seeing in yourself, and how are you using that to reorganize what you're doing through your workday to prioritize being more attentive to like your family and your kids?
I think for me, resentment is probably the number one indicator.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel
that's what
that.
kills relationships.
The second you start feeling that spite, you're like, oh, I'm definitely doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I need to check myself when I feel that way. I need to see where it's coming from, and I need to let go of that immediately. Otherwise, it's just gonna be poison for myself.
Do you do that on your own, or do you like immediately go and talk to your wife about it?
No, I try to just like keep my side of the street clean, because usually my side of the street's not clean when stuff starts going downhill. You know, so. I mean, obviously, if we're having issues, I'll talk to her and you know address things that's bothering me or whatever. But yeah, so I'm actually redoing the dare.
Yeah.
Yeah, try it again. Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Before it gets bad, you know what I mean?
Like the first time you were talking about that, you said the first time it didn't work, it was a waste of time. I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah.
What made you decide to do it again? Because you felt like it was a waste of time.
Right. I was hopeless. I had nowhere else to go.
But you knew just you're gonna make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no choice. I was like, all right, didn't work, waste of time. And I could see that like they're like going through all the different things, like there's fruit that could come of this. But our relationship was so bad that even by doing all these things didn't mean anything, didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So, but okay, let's try it again. Maybe this time it will. And it did. Little by little it started to,
So what do you think changed the second time around?
Yeah.
I think the first time I was just going through the motions, probably towards the first part of it. I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to do this today, I was still probably carrying a lot of that resentment with me.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because you gotta kind of clean the street. You gotta feel it if it's gonna do anything, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Now, for whatever it's worth, we're only asking because in these types of careers, like work-life balance, man, it is an acrobatic feat.
Yeah.
You know, so like I know that like if I had heard things like this years ago, it would have been very, very helpful. So, this isn't necessarily like a like a family life podcast, but I think this is great, man. This is like I'm really appreciating all the feedback here,
Yeah. I know there's a lot of musicians that end up in divorce and,
Yeah, it's a shame.
It is. And I think it's because the musician's lifestyle is so different from everything else. You know what I mean? And it takes a special type of person to accept someone that is a musician or someone that's an artist, like someone living that lifestyle. Right. And that's the great thing about my wife is she does accept me the way I am. She accepts the fact that I'm a whack job musician, like recording engineer. Like she knows like my lifestyle. I stay up until 3 a.m. She goes to bed at 8. Like we're totally opposites.
Oh, man. Good for her.
I know. But it works.
Yeah.
And then I've been trying to apply a similar thing with my kids, because it's difficult, with the relationship with the kids. Every kid is different. So I'm trying to make a conscious effort every day to like, be loving or, take a kid on a walk or, like spend
Yeah.
quality time with my kids. You know.
Yeah. It's never going to be predictable, but you know, it's about learning what you can to then engage with what you know you've learned. It's that's so hard to describe, but I feel like you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you found any clever ways to bond with your kids while being as busy as you are? Do you involve them in your process in any way? Do you just anything?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Florence was helping me edit a wedding video today.
Oh, really?
Nice.
How old is she again?
She's 4. Well, she was just pushing the V button for command paste or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Nice.
so cute. Oh my god.
And then,
And it's a wedding video.
exactly, yeah. So she was watching the footage. She enjoys, the wedding, and
It's adorable.
then my son Felix was helping me dig the trench, like,
Nice.
not the most exciting, but it's good father-son bonding.
You were talking about that earlier. It's like a very shallow. What are you digging this one for?
So when I first bought the house,
Yeah.
there was a ton of bad termite damage in the basement,
Oh, okay.
and I had to actually jack the house up and rip out a lot of the beams.
Yeah, that's okay. I feel like I missed a couple of details while I was setting some of the other stuff up. The pieces are coming together
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
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 So it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the most terrifying things I've ever done in my life, is jacking up a house.
It sounds insane. It doesn't sound like it should be
Man,
possible.
all I can do is imagine what my like physiological response to watching that happen would be, and I don't like any part of that.
Yeah, it was terrifying.
Oh, I don't like that.
I had like a couple car jacks and a couple bottle jacks, and I was slowly raising them one at a time, and then you could hear the house creaking, and we just got up just a millimeter, just enough to get the old rotten beam out and put the new one in, and I was like, oh my gosh.
What was how was Felix?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
looking at
Back.
Was he?
Well, he was only 3 at the time,
Oh, okay.
but
yeah.
that's when I dug the trench the first time 10 years ago,
Oh yeah.
because I didn't want any termites to ever eat my house ever again.
Yeah.
But now the chemical only lasts for 10 years, so I gotta dig the trench again so that it never happens ever again.
I know
Man.
you have told me that story once before. I still can't get over the thought of a house on car jacks.
So like me knowing absolutely nothing about how that is done, my first thought would be like, all right, well, let's just like bring all the heavy appliances out into the yard. Just kind of light load it, like all right, well, how can we like we don't need these shingles. Who knows? Like no, we can. Don't worry about that. But like, I don't know. Like, did you have to? Like, what other things did you do to stabilize the place? Like,
I think we did move like whatever furniture was in that room above where we were jacking, and
yeah.
then I didn't know if the jacks were powerful enough. I think the one was like a 20-ton that I borrowed from a friend, and then I had a couple car jacks, and we just would crank each one just a little bit at a time.
So this was
to
also something you just kind of taught yourself how to do.
Yeah. Well,
That's different. That's something like, listen, I love, just sinking my teeth into something I do not understand at all. But that's one thing I'd be like, I don't care what I'm spending. Somebody else is going to do this. Like,
well, that's the thing. Like, I did have a professional come out, and he gave me a quote, and I almost had a heart attack. And when he told me how much money it was going to cost, I was like, okay, I guess I got to figure out how to jack the house up.
you're like, all right.
So I had this one friend, I call him John the plumber, and he was really good at fixing everything, and he was coming and helping me with some of these projects, and he didn't seem afraid, and that comforted me. I was like, this guy seems very nonchalant about it,
Man.
so I guess it's okay.
See, this is one of those things that, like, if the quote was large enough, this is something that Aaron would be like, oh, we'll just do it. And I'd be like, why? No. Okay. Or, we find somebody who, can just say it confidently. I'd be like, all right, well, I'll keep talking about it. But, like, that's something that she would be like, yeah, we'll just do it ourselves. And I'm going to be like, are you insane? That's crazy. But that's went well, right?
Yeah.
And you've done it twice now?
No, I only jacked it up once.
Right,
and
but you did...
I did the trench a
Yeah.
second time because I don't ever want to jack it up again.
Have you noticed anything,
I
like
see.
anything that's changed about the house? Any new cracks or anything since after jacking it up?
I think there may have been one crack in the living room that showed up after that, but nothing severe now. No windows broke or anything. Yeah. And again, it was my wife that prompted me to dig the trenches again because we started seeing ants in the kitchen. When we first did the trenches, all the ants disappeared. We always had ants in the kitchen, but then after we did the trench, all the ants disappeared for 10 years. And all of a sudden they came back. She's like, "Well, maybe the termites are coming back. I better dig the trench again."
I forget who told me about this, but basically we've needed to replace like some wood in like the windowsills, the door frames for a while. And one of the things that we've been doing anytime we see ants is we just like we find an opening and we literally just fill it with cinnamon and then patch it up and we're like, we'll get to that. And it works. Ants it throws off their entire like chemical scent and trail so they can't follow each other, but they also hate it. So that's our Band-Aid fix. So I have more than an hour of free time each day, which I spend half of taking, my sweet time doing whatever.
That's one of those things that sounds like pseudoscience that should not work.
No, it
by
shouldn't,
any
but
means.
it actually does so ants, they're not really talking to each other. They talk to each other with chemicals,
pheromones.
right? Yeah, right. And so if there's something that disrupts that pheromone trail, like the scouts and all the other things can't actually bring back the information properly.
Yeah.
I might give you a call when we need to replace some things that yeah, because I like that sounds like something my wife would very much enjoy doing, just doing it all ourselves. And some things make me so unbelievably nervous. She's like, "Oh, let's do it," and I'm like, "Okay, sure."
This is hilarious seeing the roles flips right now because that's usually Aaron.
Dude, God bless you, man. I like how it works, and it feeds into like the communication dynamic, what supports your business, what keeps the doors open, what gives you something to do, and like how many of the recent projects have like your kids been involved in, or at least like they're standing by, watching dad get nervous kind of thing.
Yeah. No, well, you mean like home projects?
Yeah.
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 Either, really.
Yeah, I try to involve them any way I can. Felix wraps my cables, so I taught him the proper way to wrap cables in the studio. So
Yeah. Best place to start, man.
Yeah, anytime there's a session that just has cables everywhere, I'm like, Felix, come on in. Let me wrap some cables.
So okay,
Nice.
all right.
Nice.
As the final note here, like again,
Well,
yes. What do you get?
There is one thing that I really wanted to get to.
Okay.
I know one of the things that supports Light and Sound is the fact that it has this amazing, deep community of people. And
All right, we're gonna rack up another hour on here. You guys got kids at home.
please stop me if you feel like you need to go. It is 8:17 right now.
We'll be fine.
Okay. But how exactly did these people come together? Did this just start with did this start with you knew some people and then you knew some people who knew some people who knew some people who knew some people as like usual, or like since you had the open mic event, did you meet a bunch of them through there?
So when you say, are you talking about the team or are you talking about the clients?
I'm talking about the clients mostly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing that kind of helps bring in a lot of the clients is the event that we do, Light and Sound Studio Live, which started at a place called Fiddler's Green. And it was actually a guy by the name of John Hershock, who, I don't know if you know him or if you heard, but
I know that name.
Paul Hershock. Do you know Paul?
I know. I feel like I've heard John more than I feel like I've heard Paul.
Okay, I think Paul
know
was
why.
the dude that I met. Right?
Paul is the cousin of John, yeah.
Okay.
Who John actually just he passed away.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He got shot in the head. In
Oh,
Chinatown. It was all
What
over the
in
news.
sweet
Yeah, it's awful, terrible.
damn.
But he's actually the one that kind of got that whole featured artist thing going. because we were at this place called Fielder's Green, which is across from Sweeney's, and he was like, all right, let's try to, spice this up. Let's, every week we'll bring in a featured artist, and then we'll have like a contest, and we'll bring in the best featured artist. Like, that was his idea, and I just took that and ran with it, and we've been doing it ever since.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, we always try to have like a new featured artist, and a lot of the featured artists have become clients. They just get to know us, and they come check out the studio. And
sorry, I just remember our prep talk before this, and like how there are some like strikingly strange similarities. The other strange similarity, just the live stream.
The live stream, yeah.
That's
I know.
You're also named Andrew, and that's just this is the thing that I can't.
You guys should be best friends.
did we just become best friends?
I don't know. It's like one of those things where like you see like an inverse version of yourself that just like happen to be in different geographic locations in different decades, and you're like, it's very bizarre. Anyway, yeah.
Oh man. There is. Oh, what was the? Oh yeah. So, what was it like watching that go from a few people here and there to like suddenly Hezekiah Walker's in your studio?
Right. Yeah, it's mind blowing. Like, I don't understand any of it, really. Like, it's times like this where I get a chance to look back and I realize, like, oh, I started with like one guy in my upstairs room, and now I have Hezekiah Walker come into the studio.
Man,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So Hezekiah Walker is one of the largest gospel artists in the nation right now. Yeah. He's got a church up pretty close to the studio in Philly. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those insane random things.
Yeah.
that I guess kind of just happens when you're resilient for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
well,
hopefully we'll get more bigger clients in there, and like we'll just keep growing and keep doing the things that we're doing, on a larger scale. I think that's my goal, is to get a new building, because I feel like the studio that I built has we're starting to outgrow it a little bit.
Yeah.
And the next step, I told myself like 2 years ago that within 5 years I would like to get a bigger space. So that gives me 3 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
This one's tagline is the space to create. The next one could be the bigger space to create. I don't know. That felt right. Last question from me is a short one. Mm-hmm. I'm going through this personally, but just like being on your own trying to do a thing. It feels like there's so many avenues to explore, so many things that you can pursue and go down. How are you focusing yourself to keep yourself sharp? How are you finding the things that you feel like are right to grow in next and going after them?
So yeah, like I said, I've been able to do like drum lessons a quarter of the time, and audio like 30% this, 30% that, and 30% the video production. So I kind of have this good balance, but I'm at a place now where I kind of want to pursue maybe more of like what I would really want to do, which I think would be more in the video side of things and more the production side of things. So I guess I'm in the process of trying to find like a strong team that can kind of take on some of the responsibilities for me, because I kind of have to do almost everything.
I got a guy you might want to talk to, actually.
He would have loved to be here.
Yes, but I'm also talking about Tony.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
Tony is a videographic is not the word, but he is a project manager who assembles videographer teams.
Okay.
Yeah, he's recorded a new song with us every Wednesday for 5 years.
He is.
I love Tony.
He is a wild dude.
He is a very wild dude. He's a big old bundle of mysteries, man.
He's a rocket man.
He's a rocket man. Oh, dude.
He goes by Tony Rocket.
Does he? Nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Tony's a vibe, man. I gotta tell you. Anyway, let's see here. So, the last thing I want to know here is, are you happy with the decisions that you've made? Like, if you went all the way back to where all this started, like, would you do it again?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, I would have made
Yeah,
you
a
know,
little
certain
different here, a
decisions
little
and
different there, of
but
course,
I think,
right?
yeah, I mean,
Which
obviously,
ones?
Well.
Like, you can't,
Right.
of course, we're not going into detail, but like, are they more career or are they more relational?
Yeah,
Fair enough.
I think they're probably less career. Because I'm pretty happy with where I am career-wise.
Yeah.
Like, looking back on that dream that I had of being a famous drummer and performing on stage and doing all that stuff, I hate the thought of that currently. I remember I played a show with the band, Grays, for the first time in 20 years. I was terrified. Like, I'm not a performer.
Yeah.
I get stage fright. So, like, I would love to be a studio drummer and play drums in the studio because there's nobody looking at me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess just being in front of people and in front of an audience, like, I'm not that comfortable doing that. I'm not a performer. Even with the camera on me, like, I'm so much more uncomfortable because that camera's here. If it was just the microphone, I think I'd be okay. But but with the camera,
I constantly forget that that's here just because that's shiny and I can see it. But, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like, part of what I'm wondering to round this whole question off, right, is that, like, it can be really difficult for people out there to make the decision to pursue the direction in life that you ultimately ended up pursuing, right?
Right.
And I know that a lot of people who are at the starting stage of this whole thing, right, are thinking to themselves, am I going to be absolutely just nowhere 10 years from now? Is my life going to be horrible? Am I going to be making any money? What this all really comes down to is that with the right mindset, the right motivation and the right people in your life, is it possible to do stuff like this and make sure you're living it happily?
Yeah. Well, I think part of that is being honest with yourself. There are people that are trying to pursue this that maybe shouldn't. And that's true. But there are people that are pursuing this that are asking themselves that question. And the answer is yes, you can do it. So, but unfortunately, the people that shouldn't be pursuing this are not asking themselves that question 9 times out of 10.
So I guess a big indicator of whether or not you should be doing it, and if this is the right path for you, is almost whether or not you're actually asking yourself that question. That's fascinating. All right.
There you go.
Yeah, if you got the self-awareness to know whether or not you should be evaluating this, then you're probably on the right path.
Yeah, there you go.
And if you're not actually asking yourself, maybe you're in the wrong line of work.
Are you listening? Yeah.
Yo.
Andrew is an unhinged gem. I love that man. His story is really admirable. Next week, a cultural fashion giant walks among us. Like, seriously, she's on her way to becoming the ethical Zara of modern Kente. It's Addie Alaber of Dianu. See you next time. The Art of Possibility podcast, featuring Casey Brown, Moses Stubbs, Bobo G, and Andrew Curry, is brought to you by Mechanizer Studios and AG Digital Media. You can find us on streaming services everywhere, and on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube as @ArtofPossibilityPod. Thank you.